All right, Steelers fans, welcome into the Noll Road. We have all the top Steelers angles and headlines here for you in the next 30 minutes as Wild Card Weekend approaches. We're going to start with, does the result of this game matter to the Steelers and Mike Tomlin as far as 2026 and beyond? An insider who spent last weekend during the Ravens game at Acrisure has revealed his gut feeling. Could they get meaningful reinforcements if they win this week with the return of a defensive starter and one of the newer Steelers on what makes Aaron Rodgers different as a teammate? Here we go.
Then to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Shoot, yeah, and welcome into the Noll Road, where if you have not subscribed yet, we would love it if you could do that. Consider hitting the like button as well. That's the number one way you could help us get distribution. If you're liking the content, like the content. So the catalyst for this conversation, buddy, is that Tony Dungy on the Dan Patrick Show said that after that interview he did with Mike Tomlin for Sunday Night Football, then he visited with Art Rooney for a half hour in his office, came away with the distinct feeling that the Steelers don't want to move on from Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin does not want to leave Pittsburgh. And this was before, Luke misses the kick and puts the Steelers in the wild card round. So what's your gut telling you right now, all things considered, bro?
It'd have to take a blowout. It would have to be another embarrassing, this just isn't going to change. And I think that's true, not just for Tomlin, but for Rodgers. Rodgers might even have to get hurt and just be like, hey, man, Father Time isn't coming. He came. And yeah. I think it would have to be one of those things where if they go down to the wire, everyone's going to try to run it back. You're going to want Rodgers. Everyone's going to be clamoring for, oh, we're just one piece. Or look at what we did last year, and all the pieces didn't even fit. Now we know what we – it's going to be – impossible to deny unless they absolutely get kicked in the face.
Yeah, and I think it's still possible. I'll say that. I don't know what percentage chance I would put on it, but, just being around insiders on a daily basis and hearing them, like sometimes insiders that I know will call sources and put them on speakerphone, and it is amazing how consistently team sources will be really, really careful. They'll stop talking and say, man, I don't want to say anything that can get me in trouble or get this guy in trouble. So I think it is rare. Now, I have a lot of respect for Tony Dungy, and certainly he's built the relationships not only across the NFL, but Pittsburgh specifically, that gives him a level of access. I trust his gut. More than 50% on this. I think Tony Dungy is probably right. But I also think as he's having conversations with Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney, these guys have been around the block several times, and they understand it is a situation where you don't reveal anything until it's time to reveal it.
Well, and that's actually something I was going to bring into the opposite way about some of the players and some of the matchups and injuries and practice and all the different things. We'll get to that later. What's funny about how you just said what you just said to me is that you had heard the Fire Canada stuff before they fired Canada. It took it being embarrassing to the men in the press box, to the men in the owner's suite. It took it being that level, that acute. It's never going to be Dan Orlovsky, Ryan Clark, Stephen A. Smith said X. It's going to be our people in those yellow seats behind you don't want to put up with this shit anymore. And Canada was like, that was, people didn't think they were going to move on from him, and that was about as bad as it gets, about as inept as it gets, right? And when the Fire Tomlin chance come in a game where another team sets the stadium rushing record against you, running literally the same play over and over, and then you go to Cleveland, and right as we're talking about Jameis Winston Snow Angels, you make literally, statistically, the worst quarterback in Cleveland Browns history, which is what Shedeur Sanders was by the QBR metric, beat you and keep you from resting all these old guys and put everything on the line in week 18. And you need probably even more luck than you needed in Baltimore to escape with that victory. But because you've won 4 out of 5, doesn't matter how it happens, it happened. And now we're talking about unleashing hell in December and it not being a meme, because it's a results-driven business, and that is, as one of Tomlin's favorite things to talk about, are the components of the thing. And the main component of this story is right now they're winning.
Yeah, they're winning, and you know there's measurable ways they've done a really nice job. I just think as things really hit the fan in November and then got ugly again against Cleveland, if you're a team that's decided, hey, we might want a new coach, and you've watched the fans go up and down this roller coaster for 3 or 4 times this season, and now after a win and getting into the playoffs, there's this renewed sense of optimism. The things that were, pushing you in the direction of reconsidering your head coach haven't gone away just because Tyler Loop missed a kick. And guys inside an NFL building aren't going to show up like fans with their beers like, yeah, we're in the playoffs. I apologize for everything I said. No, they have positions, and being consistent on those positions, like what's the best for the team moving forward, is going to be what they default to. They're not going to default to riding the emotional wave like fans and podcasters based on the results. So, I think there's not an appetite for the story from the media right now, but I would not be surprised if very influential people inside the organization are still saying, guys, we can't let a win against Baltimore change us from what we were believing 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. So, I think at best what you're going to get as far as Tomlin's security is give him new coordinators. Let's get Austin and Smith out of here and maybe give them more autonomy to draw things up. I think that would be what would make sense to me. Like, all things considered, okay, we won. We got into the playoffs. They won 4 of 5. Let's keep Tomlin, but let's give him new coordinators. And at worst, it could be, guys, this is a huge salary, and we have the 2027 option that we need to make a decision on by March. So if you go with him now, it is going to be an extra $20 million. And while that's a small percentage of a billionaire's net worth, it's still $20 million.
Yes, it is. And it's not an insignificant number, but to your point, they bought the team for pennies on the dollar relative. Not even fractions of a penny. It's like the Office Space or Superman 2 bank thing, right?
Which is how normal people would look at it, like, holy crap, we're so up multiple thousands of X's on our investment. This is so great. You get money. But billionaires think about protecting and preserving capital at every turn.
I know, I do. But I also, I know that that's a totally different conversation, because I brought it up to you where these guys are paying even $500,000 fines, and that's like $50 to me and you, and you're like, it's $500,000, right? But what I'm saying is, you're right, but at the same time, they keep doing the same damn thing. And I think because they're, $10 billion, 7, 8, 9, $10 billion, right? Cowboys at 14, 15. The Steelers are pushing 10. Depending on where you look at,
14 actually, 14 in the latest, yeah,
right. But no, the Steelers are pushing, into that 10 plus category, right? They're right there. Cowboys are 1. Everyone else is fighting to catch them globally. Because of that, the Steelers can take their time. Unlike other teams, like you brought up Tony Dungy. Let's not forget his career in Tampa Bay is a lot like Mike Tomlin's. They traded draft picks to go get Gruden, because it wasn't good enough to just go 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, and then get the break speed off you in the first round. They had a Super Bowl ready team. They went and got a Super Bowl ready coach, and they won the damn thing. Yeah. And now Dungy went on, and ultimately, obviously he got his ring too. But I think people forget that, like, the Steelers are the only team like this, and they like that. The 3 coaches since 1969, they want to see Tomlin get to his 20th year. And you brought up the 27 extension. The most interesting thing, even more interesting than a stadium full of people chanting, "Fire Tomlin," to me, will be if they get beat bad and they don't pick up the option and he's a lame duck coach at 26. Because I feel like the only way change is really and truly going to come for 18 weeks of Mike Tomlin, for a whole calendar year, offseason through all the things, is if the only way he gets extended, the only way this ends the way I think everyone wants it to on the inside, is if he sort of reinventing himself completely shows that he's still the guy. Like we keep having this conversation about how there's no coaching tree and there isn't even a scheme. But then last week we kind of peel it back and we say, hey, let's give the man praise. It didn't work, but he at least tried dropping Highsmith. They did some fire zone blitz, all the buzzwordy things that you want to see trending on Twitter or wherever you go hunt this story. The problem is there's no impetus. There's no reason to change because $20 million becomes $40 million if they win this game.
Yeah, and I think that's the way out for them. If you don't pick up the option, then Mike Tomlin's looking at it like I'm a lame duck coach, and most coaches look at that like it's time to go. So if you have another option, you're going to go to TV or you're going to coach somewhere else, and all of a sudden it turns into maybe a buyout or Mike Tomlin effectively leaving the job, saying I detected a lack of faith in what I can bring.
My favorite version of this conversation, and I think one of the original ones, is Bill Parcells. When he talks about how he was about to get run out of the Giants, and he said, if this is going to be it, and that might have been the end of his coaching career. If this is going to be how it ends, then it's the Sinatra moment. Then I'm doing it my way. And that meant him. That's where the big tuna stuff comes from, because he didn't give a bleep about what anybody thinks. Mm-hmm. And he was not a great person. No. But he became a great coach.
Yeah.
Because he said, this is how it's going to be done. This is what it's going to take. You put Tomlin in that lame duck seat where you're now no longer trading him to the Maras. There is no parachute. There's no soft landing because they've hired Harbaugh or McDaniel. And some of these seats that we've talked about being open are full. And some of the dance card menus that look really neat based on how you want to sit people next to each other at that wedding, everybody's getting divorced.
Yeah. So you mentioned, like, could it get ugly? And that's what I think this conversation has to start with, right? What an ugly loss. Now, 6 games in a row without scoring in the first quarter. Like, at the end of the first quarter, if they're scoreless, Steelers Twitter is going to be on fire with it. Yeah. Acrisure Stadium is going to be buzzing with the idea of, holy crap, it has happened again. Now, you get blown out again, right? You lose by double digits again. I think we could absolutely be here late Monday night, Tuesday morning here on the Noll Road. And, I guess I would, wonder what the audience thinks. Like, what reason do you have to believe this is going to be different? The beginning of the Ravens game was horrible, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers is getting all this credit for, like, oh, thank you for coming to Pittsburgh. You've saved us. Coming into this game, they'd scored 10 points or less in 3 of the last 8. We've talked about this. Like, their offense isn't good. Aaron Rodgers is not an all-pro quarterback putting the team on his back. He had an amazing quarter, which he's had 4 or 5 times this year to sort of bail them out. But, like, the mark of a truly great quarterback that you could put your faith in is a guy that's going to have a great game plan, come out and execute, and put you in a position to win this game running away by halftime.
Well, I mean, think about it. It took us 18 weeks for us to get Freiermuth in the seam. It's insane, right? And Houston plays a ton of 2. They play 2 shell. They play Tampa 2. They play non-traditional 2. Or at the very least, you expect them to show those things to you as variants to try to trick 8 on Monday night. So if we don't get a healthy dose of Freiermuth, or if they don't figure out, now you could say, him and John, who haven't been on the same page, and they've missed him deep in the middle a few times throughout the year. But, I mean, I'm a guy who's gone on record and said that on some teams, Pat Freiermuth would catch 100 balls. That it would be, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews before the injury, pick your favorite guy, Tony Gonzalez over time. I'm not saying he's going to be that guy for his whole career, but at any given moment, when you see Brock Bowers not just running seam routes, but running shallow crosses and being part of, spot routes and screens and all the different things, like, Freiermuth can do a lot of those things. And they didn't do jack shit with him this year until they absolutely had to. And I think that's the part of it that's so frustrating is, why does it take you being pushed because they want to be able to say, not just I won, but I won my way. I was right. And they only change when the game forces you to, because, I mean, that's where the ultimate truth serum comes from. If you go out there and you throw little bubble bullshit baby screens and Kenneth Gainwell's a leading receiver on your team, and I'm not just talking about DK being out for the past 2 weeks, So what? The other guys are NFL players too. The same way Tomlin talks about how, the Cleveland Browns, those guys are getting – you should have beat the brakes off of Shedeur Sanders-led Cleveland Browns. I don't care how good that defense is. Win that game. Find a way.
Yeah.
Instead of finding a way to make excuses.
But that's what's going to work is the BS screen passes to Gainwell and Warren, a 50-50 run pass split, and then 3 or 4 seam balls to Freiermuth at most, and a couple of deep balls to DK Metcalf. Like, that should be the approach, and that's not putting it on Aaron Rodgers' back. That is a great schematic approach to breaking down the Texans, and an occasional big play from Aaron Rodgers.
Right, but that's not going to beat Josh Allen if the Bills get through and they're healthy and they come correct. That's not going to beat Mahomes when he's at his best. It's not going to beat – you're not going to win a Super Bowl that way. You're gonna end up, even if you get to the place that you want to get to, being embarrassed, have an egg on your face. Like, it's not going to be a fun day.
I think it could. I think – between what Warren and Gainwell provide, play action and deep balls, like making the defense defend the entire field to open up the seam and open up the deep routes is your path to efficient offense. That's what worked Monday or Sunday night against the Baltimore Ravens. Their offense was stuck in mud until you got the run game going.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, every team has flaws. There's no super team. There's no team that's getting a nickname out of this. There's no greatest show on turf, right? There's no team that you're terrified of. Anybody can win the Super Bowl. Justin Herbert's running for his life because the offensive line stinks. I will buy any argument about anything that just Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are doing to try to protect that man. Chipping, checkdowns, right? Because of the circumstances. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not have that circumstance. Their line has gotten better throughout the season. Dylan Cook might be better than Broderick Jones. We're talking about not picking up Broderick Jones' fifth-year option. That's how good that dude's playing. Your center's going to be all pro next year. McCormick's a steal. Fatanu's the prince that was promised. Like, you have Freiermuth. You have Jonnu. You have 2 running backs. Like, the one thing you don't have is this elite wide receiver. So all of a sudden you can't do anything on offense. I'm just tired of it being a reactionary conversation and them not ever like going out there saying, this is how we're going to dictate to you how you lose.
All right, up next here on the Noll Road, where are you with the potential Deshon Elliott return? I think this is hype. I wish I could believe that he's going to be back. It'd be great to have him. Kabali had a story that there's conflicting opinions in the building, but I don't think that's present day. I think that goes back to the hours and the days following the injury where there were some conflicting reports like, is he for sure out for the year or could he come back? Did he? I mean, I was shocked that he avoided the torn ACL, but right. What I saw in the reporting on it was, he was hurt October 8th. And he was still in crutches late November. And last time he talked to reporters, he said he was 2 weeks away from getting off crutches. So maybe he's been off crutches for 3.5 or 4 weeks right now. So I would be surprised. I think it's a fun story, and maybe there's some hope in there. Like if you stay alive, maybe he could potentially come back. But man, if you're on crutches for 2 months, that's a pretty damn extensive knee injury.
Yeah, and this is the big difference. Everything that I've ever seen is if you look like me, you can play. If you look like you, good luck. Because like you can't run out in space the same way that you can mitigate some of this stuff when you're playing in a phone booth, right? I mean, Elliott's literally covering every square inch of that field, and you're exposed. And all it takes is one little slip if you're in perfect condition. Now you're talking about being out there with a wobbly knee. You're about to get picked on real bad. So part of this to me when I saw it was just kind of the way the world is like, oh, hey, don't forget about me. Let me throw this up on the gram. But I think also if you believe Mike Tomlin is still this great leader, but if you believe this franchise and this team has a chance, you know what they're doing? They're making you have to go watch tape of Deshon Elliott. You know what they're doing? They're making you have to plan for 3 safeties. And that look, they're making CJ Stroud have to waste time in Wednesday practice saying, what happens if they come out and show us this? Because Deshon Elliott might play.
I like it. Hell of a player. I mean, there were some games Man, he's been hurt a lot this year, but when he was right, there were a couple of games where I felt like he is one of, if not the best defensive player for the Steelers on the field right now. Maybe not in a career resume type of perspective, but man, hell of a player. I thought when he went out that it was something they would have a really difficult time recovering from. Obviously, the Kyle Duggar trade and then the move of Jalen Ramsey has helped them mitigate that incredibly well.
Can we also not forget that Peppers is on this team? Can we not forget that Chucky Clark? Think about guys who are gone. Minka, the first domino to fall. This safety room, you have never seen a season like this, or at least you'd have to look pretty freaking hard to see the number of guys who have been all pros, Pro Bowlers, and then also rise up and be surprised. And then also like this, when they signed Chuck Clark, everyone was like, hey, they stole a potential guy from one of your rivals. And this could be one of the best values of the season. And like every single one of these dudes has had a story this year. And it's a fascinating room when you think about like some of the matchups and some of the things that they could do if they are able to go on a run.
Yeah, tremendous job. James Pierre, the addition of Asante Samuel Jr., Brandon Eccles has made plays for you. Like, there's a lot to like. And yes, at one point in the middle of the season, I did forget Chuck Clark was on the roster.
Yeah.
And sometimes when he's out on the field, I wish he wasn't. But he's played pretty good at times.
And you like Samuel going forward, but the thing about Pierre that's really neat is there's some rankings that have him. They got JPJ 1 and Pierre 2. And if he'd played more snaps, he'd be in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, it is pretty dang amazing. I think salute to the personnel department, the coaches. They have done quite a things well to get.
Which hasn't always been the case with the DBs, right? This is when they get it right, you got to recognize.
Yeah. Mark Ross, former NFL executive, writer for NFL.com, wrote about Broderick Jones' fifth-year option this week, said it's a tough call. Are you picking it up? It's at $19.9 million. I think it's a non-starter considering what Dylan Cook has done out there and, the sacks and pressures that Broderick Jones gave up in his 9 or 10 games or something. I'd love to believe in the guy, but I think you have an incredible opportunity to free up money that maybe you didn't plan on having.
I had a little back and forth in the comments yesterday. What do you think of this? What if you kick him inside and let him eat a few cheeseburgers with Darnell Washington and replace Sayamalu, knowing that you could, in a pinch, have him as your swing emergency tackle?
Or your jumbo guy. He's such a great athlete. I think there's ways to use him. Yeah. But it involves just playing out the fourth year and seeing where you are and negotiate a contract based on you being a depth player, a swing tackle, a guard, but I think starting left tackle or starting right tackle, for me at least, would be out.
Are you just simply flatly and plainly not picking up the option then?
Yeah. It's too much money. And unless you're saying we got to have this guy for depth and we're going to throw so much money at this roster, we're going to build a super team around Aaron Rodgers in 2026. We're going to get the wide receiver too. We're going to get the stout middle linebacker that can handle everything. If you do that and it's just part of a massive all-in move to make sure you have quality and depth everywhere and you're immune to injuries like the Eagles were in 2024, I'm with it. But, for all intents and purposes, I believe the Steelers are still a pretty penny pinching type of salary cap managing team. Okay, up next here on the Noll Road, let me share this tab. We'll come over here and do this. Adam Thielen shares what makes Aaron Rodgers unique to play with. I mean, Thielen's had a long career. He's played with 11 different quarterbacks, says he's the first guy I've been around that will really test guys through the week of practice and to try to make it tough on guys, last-second signals or maybe some signals that maybe he wouldn't normally use in a game. Just wants to know how much you know and if he can trust you on game day. I think this is part of the reason why maybe Roman Wilson fell out of favor. It's probably another reason Marquez Valdes-Scantling is getting the ball because maybe he doesn't have talent, but at least he's on the same page with Aaron Rodgers consistently. It's maybe why Aaron Rodgers has seemed more comfortable over the last 5 or 6 weeks since you have brought Adam Thielen in there because that's an important component. Maybe too much so for Aaron Rodgers, but he is who he is and what he does has worked for him. But just another way to appreciate and get more backstory on what Aaron Rodgers is doing for your football team.
Yeah, and I have a ton of respect for Thielen. I mean, a lot of people might not know this, right? I mean, he's been an All-Pro, and he's been a Pro Bowler, and he's been a damn near 1,400-yard receiver and a 14 touchdown guy. He's been a 75% catch rate guy. He's been a 65-ish% success rate guy. Like he's been a really good player, right? And maybe never truly elite, but about as really, really, really freaking good as you can be and not be in that next tier, right? And he's going to catch the ball, and he's going to be where you expect him to be. And I've wanted to bitch, moan, and complain about this. I've been biting my tongue a little bit about Roman Wilson's season and stuff because it bothers me that they haven't figured it out from a talent perspective, a draft capital perspective, et cetera, at all. But you know what? The word they keep using is belief. And if you believe more in a dude who's going to be where he's going to be, even if he's covered, because you can put it by the dude's ear hole that's covering him, sometimes that's what it takes.
And it's what Rodgers needs to believe. And I believe,
That's what I mean.
Yeah, that confidence is contagious. You know, when he doesn't trust you, he gives you that stink face and he's running off the sideline, pissed off at guys. And that version of Aaron Rodgers that we saw quite a bit against Buffalo and that absolute disaster hasn't been as prevalent as what it's been since Adam Thielen and Marcus Valdes-Scantling arrived.
Well, because now you're not fighting each other, you're fighting the coaches. If you were fighting anybody, right? Like,
yeah.
And then the players are all united, and it's like, hey guys, this is what we need to do. Oh, by the way, Aaron will fucking change it anyway.
All right, we'll be back soon to do a show specifically on the defensive backs and what these guys could mean for trying to slow down a Houston Texans team that loves the big explosive play. Until then, we'll see you right here, Dawson and Newbear on the Noll